Well, hello everybody. I'm Jeff. I want to welcome you to East End Books, and I want to thank the people that decided to turn up, even though, with the weather reports, as you can see, the weather turned, and it's beautiful, and it's good that the weather got better because we might not have had Sam here, who had a challenge getting here from Porto, and but thankfully is here. And I've mentioned at events all summer that in addition to tonight's event with Sam, he will also be at our new store in Boston, East End Books Boston Seaport on Pier 4 next to the ICA Museum. That's going to be on the 27th. And I think Sam mentioned you're going to be appearing on a program, a television program?
I'm on WBZ TV on Monday.
Wonderful.
I don't know, maybe I'm cooking something. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, wonderful. No, that's fantastic. So we do have, I know people have come in, we've done multiple reorders on the book, and our last reorder came in on time, so we have books again that we have been out of the new book, and we have also the last book coming back, Joan Crawford. We had sold out of that book, but I do believe we have it in our store in Boston, and we'll have it for that event. And then I wanted to mention to you that the next event, all of the events are on our website, you can see them, but our next event is, when is it? It's next week. Thursday. Okay, yeah. And that's at the library, and information on there about that. Cool book set in the 60s. But then what I was thinking about, I wanted to mention is people that have come in here before. One of my booksellers, Chris, has a fantastic book called Mississippi Barking. And it's the 20th anniversary of Katrina, and she was set up that foundation to rescue animals, and is still working with that foundation as well. And she will be appearing with Barbara Cohen, the artist Barbara Cohen, who has a new book out called Dog Time. So they'll be together. The rest of the information is on there. The only thing people ask me, are there any events that that they need to get it together and get a ticket early? You know, usually you can come when they're here. We've got plenty of space. We put the chairs out. But we do have an event that's almost sold out in November in Boston. And I'm not sure how that's happening because it's on our website, but it's not advertised yet. But I think it's the power of the Swifties. We have an event with Professor Stephanie Burt from Harvard, who has the first authorized book on Taylor Swift coming out in October called Taylor's Version. Stephanie was here in June. We had her here for Super Gay Poems, and she went viral, has millions of TikTok followers because she's teaching the first course on Taylor Swift at Harvard. And so we've got that event. So if you want to go, it's November 2nd. Yeah, November 2nd is the event. Okay, and then everything else is happening. The only other thing I mentioned to you, we expect the Provincetown Library Book Festival next month to sell out as it usually does. It's free to attend, but you need to reserve, and they have limited space, and it does fill up. And the books go pretty quickly, so whether you're planning to attend or not, I suggest you pre-order the books on our website. We have it on our website each of the 3 days, every book listed, and if you can't come, or you're coming and you want to make sure you get the book, or you want one of the older books from the author, you can get them, and we'll get them signed. We'll have them ready for you in the book room on the second floor of the library. So we hope to see you there. It's another great lineup. All right. So really happy to have Sam Garza here. My pronunciation is horrible, as you know.
Samuel Garza Bernstein.
I would have been right this time. I just call him Sam. But anyway, he is a best-selling author, a Stonewall Book Award winner, and an award-winning screenwriter and playwright whose work often reflects the wild intersections of modern life. He and his husband, Ronald, and their pack of incorrigible dachshunds. I'm terrible at it. It's been a long summer. Split their time between Porto, Portugal, and Los Angeles, although you're mainly in Porto now, aren't you? Or are you still going?
Well, I'll be in LA for a few months.
Okay. Howard Karren is the owner of Alden Gallery. He's a former editor of Premier Magazine, as well as a writer for many local publications, including the Provincetown Independent and the Banner, and has one of the most beautiful galleries in town, and we're pleased to occasionally have, and do have right now, one of the paintings from his artist, Robert Morgan, who we absolutely love, and people that have been coming in years past to our store might remember there was a beautiful painting by Robert of Frank O'Hara and Bill Berkson. His just a beautiful painting, and we used to do live streams inside. We didn't have as many stuff in there, and you could see that beautiful painting. And I always wished that I had the money to buy it. And then an author in town, Russ Lopez, bought it, and they had it at their place in Boston, but now it's at their house here, so I get to still see it. Anyway, Robert Morgan, it's great to see you. We love your work. Thank you. And then I'm just going to say, because it's on the website, you're going to hear about them now, that Cesar Romero is an in-depth study of a significant Hollywood star and his impact on the entertainment industry. Batman made him immortal, but with more than 400 film and television credits, his 6-decade career as an actor, dancer, and singer made him a true Hollywood icon. And I'm just so thrilled to have Sam here. And I also wanted to mention that it was wonderful to have lunch with you and your husband in London. Was that last year in the fall, or was it this year in the spring?
This year.
Yes, because I've been back and forth. I'm getting close. Very close to getting 3 Junes made into a series that Julia Glass won the National Book Award for. And so I was back out there to meet with an actor in York, England, and then I went into London. So I was trying to remember when that was, but it was
James Norton, right?
James Norton.
He's having a moment.
He is having a moment, and we're really excited. It's moving along. If you've never read 3 Junes, we've got it in all of our bookstores. It's one of my favorite books. This was from 2002 when Julia won the National Book Award for that, and she's the co-founder of 20 Summers. But in any event, without further ado, 2 people I admire very much and count as friends. I give you Sam and Howard.
Hello. Hello. So, we could start by talking about Cesar Romero's laugh as the Joker, right? If you play a recording or show a video of that laugh to just about any adult alive, I bet that person recognizes him as the first Joker. They may not know his name, but the voice and his face are immortal. In Cesar's incredibly long 6-decade career, he brings a gallery of characters to life, spanning every genre imaginable. But it is that laugh and the full-bodied, hammy, joyful performance that went with it in 1966 that makes Cesar Romero a superstar. Suddenly, he's on lunchboxes, school supplies, board games, t-shirts, jigsaw puzzles, and trading cards. He's an action figure. He's got a Halloween mask, and toys inspired by him include joy buzzers, squirting flowers, and trick guns. And the character goes from being one of many Batman villains to rivaling the popularity of the Caped Crusaders themselves. Now, it isn't until the late 1970s that, when Batman is in reruns, that I see Cesar Romero as the Joker for the first time. And I kind of fall in love, I mean, immediately. And certainly it's the camp element that attracts. This is not just my introduction to the Joker and Cesar, though. It's my first real exposure to live-action superheroes of any kind, leaving me with a sense of the genre being great fun, and more important, as a place that's queer-friendly, though I don't have the vocabulary or sense of cultural identity to articulate it that way at the time. I recognize him and celebrities like Charles Nelson Riley, Paul Lynde, Rip Taylor, Wayland Flowers, and Madam as projections of my future self. I mean, I'm not delusional. I don't imagine myself growing up and becoming a hilarious villain in clownish neon makeup, plotting the demise of grown men who wear their underpants outside of their tights. But I recognize the humor, the mannerisms, and the innuendos. And the Joker's wild abandon is inspiring and empowering in a cockeyed sort of way. Over the years that follow, a rich tapestry of Cesar's other accomplishments, pre and post-Batman, also become part of my sense of him. As a kid, a performance I remember vividly is an episode of Charlie's Angels, where he plays a dreamy, passionate big band leader and owner of a ballroom where everyone always wears period costumes. And the angels show up in these slinky, satin, cut-on-the-bias gowns. And best of all, spoiler alert, Cesar is revealed as the nostalgia-driven murderer. And he takes Jacqueline Smith hostage with her own gun. The episode airs in 1980, 8 days before he turns 73 years old. A little more than 50 years earlier, he gets his start in the entertainment business as a ballroom dancer in New York City. On Charlie's Angels, he plays that same elegant dancer, grown older, if not wiser. He makes his Broadway debut in 1927, and his first film in 1933. Soon after, he becomes the Cisco Kid, who is the Latino Robin Hood of Westerns, when he takes over for the star Warner Baxter, who's pushing 50 at the time. He is Shirley Temple's, quote, swarthy, exotic foreign savior in two of her most beloved classics, Wee Willie Winkie and The Little Princess. Though in the former, while he does save her, he's also sort of her kidnapper, albeit inadvertently. He's a sexy gangster in films like Tall, Dark, and Handsome and A Gentleman at Heart. And most memorably to me, he's the singing and dancing star of some of the most popular of the deliriously demented musicals produced by 20th Century Fox in the 1930s and 1940s, like Weekend in Havana, Springtime in the Rockies, Coney Island, and Wintertime, opposite Carmen Miranda, Carmen Miranda, Alice Faye, Betty Grable, and the ice skating star Sonia Henney. Boy, is she a talent. No one expected her to act. Western outlaw, foreign savior, hot criminal, dancing Latin lover. These are only a few of the archetypes he embodies, as 20th Century Fox plugs him into anything and everything. His career runs the gamut: comedy, musicals, westerns, adventure, mystery, science fiction, horror, fantasy, noir, epic, 3D, family, and Batman. Now, in watching and rewatching him create the characters that come before the Joker, you can experience them as kind of building blocks that make his iconic performance possible. Like the range of genres under his belt gives him the ability to bring size and freedom to the portrayal. The colossal diversity of his experiences gives him the fearlessness that makes the characters so vividly alive. Cesar Romero is completely ahead of his time in one sense. Long before the term intersectionality exists, he embodies the concept. As an American-born Latino, he's the grandchild of Jose Marti, a Cuban national hero for his central role in the War for Independence from Spain. And he's the son of a very wealthy Cuban-American family. He's also a gay man, secure enough that even though he assiduously keeps his private life out of the public eye, he still refuses to marry a woman to provide cover, unlike many of his peers in Hollywood. Neither does he conform to binary stereotypes about ethnicity, social class, sexual orientation, or cultural identity. He's Latino, but he never identifies as the other, even as he's often cast as a veritable United Nation of ethnicities. He's a child of wealth who, in his late teens, becomes his family's breadwinner out of dire necessity and remains so for decades, often living with and supporting 3 generations of the Romero clan. He's gay, but his sense of family, partnership, and masculinity conform to the straight dictates of 20th century America. He adores and respects women, but never questions the male power structure or gender roles. And though he's a conservative who passionately opposes communism, he's not publicly supportive of right-wing excesses during the blacklisting era. Oops, hold on. I didn't expect to have to hold my own microphone. Jesus Christ.
The wireless is not cooperating at the moment.
So,
A touch of Joan in there.
I know. Give me my vodka in a Pepsi bottle. There are rumors that his long friendship with star Tyrone Power is romantic, particularly after they fly alone with Power as the pilot on a 10-week trip to Central and South America after World War II. The studio sends them on the trip in support of the U.S. Good Neighbor policy. Amid frenzied media coverage throughout the Americas, Cesar and Tyrone Power dine with Juan and Eva Perón, among others, and are met by tens of thousands of fans. In a 1985 interview, when asked if he and Tyrone Power are ever more than friends, Cesar replies simply, quote, "I loved this man. Were we more than just friends? Sometimes we don't know what we are." Cesar is private about his romantic life in his 1930s and 1940s press coverage. But during that time, the constant drumbeat is marriage. When, why not, who, where, and how. With a breathless account of one or another exploit, a photo of Cesar doing something adorable with a beautiful woman, and a quote from him about not yet finding the right girl. The following is only a partial list of the candidates said to be in the running by various publications in alphabetical order. Now, I wish we were doing the PowerPoint with this, because I can show you all the pictures of his prospective wives. Some of them are famous and you remember them, some of them you don't. But here we go. In alphabetical order: Muriel Angeles, Lynn Barry, Binnie Barnes, Ina Bauer, Constance Bennett, Tala Burrell, Sally Blaine, Virginia Bruce, Iris Bunham, Jean Chatburn, Joan Crawford, Lorraine Day, Marlene Dietrich, Francis Drake, Steffi Duna. I don't know who that is. Sally Ellers, Patricia Ellis, Lucille Fairbanks, Betty Furness, Lynn Gilbert, Marion Harris Jr., Sonia Henney, Nancy Kelly, Carol Landis, Barbara Lawrence, Carol Lombard, Ethel Merman, Ann Miller, Eleanor Powell, Ann Rutherford, Ann Sheridan, Dinah Shore, Barbara Stanwyck, Jean Tierney, June Davis, Claire Trevor, Lana Turner, Vanita Varden, Arlene Whelan, Kobina Wright Jr., Jane Wyman, and Loretta Young.
Ba-dum-pum.
Bigamist.
Actually, there's a lot of sincerity and naivete mixed in with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and the pumpery. And on Cesar's part, perhaps even some hope. Maybe he will fall in love with a woman. Stranger things have happened. All his friends have wives. He goes on double dates with them, hitting the swanky nightclubs with beautiful women on his arm. Other closeted gay actors go on these arranged dates, and in published photographs, they seem like they're just hitting their marks. They seem miserable. Not so with Cesar. He and Joan Crawford laugh uproariously in each other's arms. He shares a cigarette with Ann Sheridan with a gleeful, conspiratorial gleam in his eye. He winks at Betty Furness with a clear sense of intimacy. He's clearly having a blast. Cesar is lucky that something he's so obviously passionate about, dancing and nightclubs and really spending time with his friends, that it's inherently authentic and it makes him appear as something of a hetero dandy in all the press coverage. And it's kind of, to me, it's indicative of a lot of things about his life, where it's just kind of, he's lucky. Like something could be going wrong, and yet it just kind of turns the right way for him and goes in his favor. And in that vein, he's lucky in his misfortunes. Quote, "If my father's sugar business hadn't gone broke, I'd be exporting nuts, bolts, and sugar machinery right now. What an awful thought," he tells the New York Times in 1965. That's being lucky in your misfortune. And were it not for a series of crises in the Cuban sugar markets in the early and mid-20s, the world would have been denied the pleasure of Cesar Romero as the Joker. Among Batman aficionados, there's actually something of a divergence in feelings about the campiness of the television series. In 1989, the menace of Jack Nicholson is startlingly different from Cesar Romero. And by the time of the Oscar-winning performances of Heath Ledger in 2008 and Joaquin Phoenix in 2019, Jack Nicholson comes to seem relatively lighthearted. Closer to Cesar than to Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix. Yet, Cesar Romero's performance endures. Quote, "The truth is that the very best Joker was not introspective and wounded and soulful. He was a cheerful, extroverted goofball who tripped from crime to crime with purple tails flapping behind him in insouciant glee. I speak, of course, of that arch-criminal, Gotham's grinning clown prince of crime, Cesar Romero," says film critic and comic book specialist Noah Berlatsky, writing for sci-fi.com. Quote, "Romero's Joker is a far cry from the sinister, slightly more psychotic version that we're used to seeing now, to be sure, but his flamboyant theatricality has definitely influenced all subsequent portrayals of the Dark Knight's archenemy," writes Sean T. Collins in a 2019 article in Rolling Stone. Cesar Romero was born in 1907. He dies in 1994. He plays the Joker from 1966 to 1968. That Rolling Stone thinks he's relevant enough to be written about in 2019 speaks volumes about the lasting impact of his performance on popular culture. Now, depending upon what qualifies as a film appearance, whether you count cameos, playing yourself, voiceovers added after the fact, and the like, Cesar appears in some 110 movies. He makes over 250 scripted television appearances and another 130 or so appearances as himself on talk shows and game shows. He's credited over 30 times posthumously on projects using archival footage, so that's over 500 professional credits. A few of Cesar's films are difficult to find, but nothing is considered lost. As I began this project, I found all kinds of things posted online. My favorite clip is from the 1986 Golden Globes. Now, at that point, Cesar was on Falcon Crest, so he was back on the A-list, so he was invited to give out the award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama, and the winner is Whoopi Goldberg. It's her first big award for The Color Purple. Now, a shocked Whoopi cannot get over it. She looks at Cesar, and she looks around the room, and she does this double take and then a triple take, and she says, "You have dreams, you have visions," and all of a sudden you get an invitation to go to one of these things. You sit and you gawk, and I've never seen all these people before. I mean, Cesar Romero! And the audience just bursts into spontaneous applause. And they cut to like Oprah Winfrey applauding him, and he's just sort of on the stage going, "Wow, this is kind of fabulous." He's loving every minute of it, as well he should. By writing this biography, I hope to bring wider attention to his many accomplishments that predate and postdate his rendezvous with that destiny. For his part, Cesar never regrets that the Joker proves his most enduring contribution to show business, an industry he loved with all his heart. Quote, "As far as I'm concerned, I've been fortunate in my life, really," he says in a 1992 interview. "I had no training for this profession. What I did, I just did naturally, and one thing led to another. I've always been grateful, and believe me, I count my blessings. How delicious," he often says as the Joker. Delicious indeed. Hail Caesar.
Thanks.
That was your problem.
Yes. And I can't cackle like the Joker. I was curious, and I think we did discuss this actually back when you were doing the Joan Crawford book. What drew you to do this book, and how did you go about the beginnings of researching it and putting it together?
Well, it was really my agent's idea. He came to me and he said, "No one's ever written a book about Cesar Romero." And I'm like, "Seriously?"
Is your agent gay?
No, isn't that weird? It's like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it was his idea to do Joan Crawford, his idea to do Roddy McDowell, which is coming out next year. It's like, maybe he is gay.
Ooh.
I don't know. Should ask his wife. But you know, I was really attracted to the idea that this could be the first book written about him, and you know, and he was sort of adjacent. I'd written about Joan Crawford, and they were kind of best friends, and you know, I already knew kind of a lot of the material in terms of his work life. I didn't know anything about him personally, and like the whole Jose Marti thing, I was like, seriously? You know, well, even all the press coverage.
You should explain what the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, so Jose Marti, as I said in my opening remarks, was this national hero, credited as the George Washington of Cuba, freeing them from the shackles of Spain so that they could enjoy the shackles of Batista, but the shackles of Castro. But he was a big deal. There's a statue of him in Central Park, along with Simón de Bolivar, and I don't know, one of those other guys. And you know, there was just this depth. You know, someone like Joan Crawford arrived in Hollywood as a kind of blank canvas. She's like, decide who I am, make me into whatever you want. You know, Cesar arrived in Hollywood as a complete person, and he grew up as a person who saw himself as someone of substance. And part of that had to do with Jose Marti, part of it had to do with the fact that they were so wealthy. I mean, they were really, really wealthy. And press accounts used to call them my favorite thing about press coverage at the time was when they would go, they're the fourth wealthiest Cuban family in America. How do you know that? The fourth, not the third, not the fifth, the fourth. Who's doing the documentation here? Although sometimes they were one of the most wealthy Italian families or Spanish families or Mexican families, because, you know, in press coverage in that era, that was all the same thing. So, you know, and he was always kind of a good sport about that. But the deeper that I got into it, and I discovered that there was a trove of material at the USC Cinema Television Library. To get back to the roundabout way to your actual question. So that was my starting point. And then I looked through a lot of archives, finding, correspondence, finding old press coverage, and really trying to put the pieces together, especially in his early life. It's sort of hard. There's not as much internet material available for, who's doing a tour of Strictly Dishonorable in Northern America in 1927. That's hard to find online.
Sam does amazing research for all of his books, and this one is no exception. And when you do research, and I have experience in this, having worked with Hollywood as a journalist, that the statements you find and the evidence you find of various things is very hard to discern. It's very hard to discern myth from fact. It's very hard to discern when people are being real, when they're creating a PR smokescreen. And you do an amazing job of that. And I was curious, like, how you approach that. And for example, when you were talking about Jose Marti, his mother was the illegitimate daughter of Jose Marti, which is kind of amazing, and it was in fact people talked about it in many different ways, as his goddaughter, or that she was his yeah. So it goes on and on and on like that. His birth date, and particularly when you're talking about closeted people in Hollywood, there's a lot of definite smoke screens that go up. So how do you work that? How do you look at that material and decide how much you can trust out of the source?
Well, the first thing is that when anybody uses an ultimate, I'm always suspicious. you know, Louise Brooks had this thing she used to say, I hate all those shitty firsts. Which, what she meant is, all the times people say, this is the first time this ever happened. It's like, nothing is ever the first time anything ever happened. Nothing. And so the more that you have something in information that calls it the first, the most, the least, you know, that kind of makes me think, is it? And then I start digging some more. And, you know, also, if you read the press coverage, you know, you immediately start noticing, you know, first of all, she starts as the, you know, Jose Marti starts as the godfather, then he's this, then he's that, then he's the father. And, you know, I saw the letters that he actually wrote, that they're at the University of Florida. I think they're in Florida at a university, whatever university that is, I don't remember. But the actual letters that he wrote to her, and he wrote to her as his daughter. I mean, saying, you're my daughter. I mean, it's like in his hand, you know, so I'm like, well, I can accept that. But you look for that kind of firsthand, you know, information as much as possible. And some of it is just common sense. You know, you ask yourself some questions. Is it possible that this is the first time anyone ever did this thing? You go, probably not. And I don't know, I think I've always been a little contrary that way. When someone tells me something and says, this is the truth, I go, is it? And, you know, I don't know. I just keep, like, that part of it, finding, well, I say finding the truth, finding a truth. And I try to be very open about what I don't know. And I particularly do that with Tyrone Power. I mean, to look at footage of the two of them together, because there's footage of them, like, in real life together. I mean, it's electric between them. You know, there's an emotional connection that is undeniable. I was, however, not alive and not in their bedroom. And there is no, you know, there are no love letters. There are no, so I hope they slept together. God, I would have liked to watch. Jesus, they were so incredible looking. It's just the mind boggles. But I can't, you know, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I know for a fact, you know, everybody knows. Everybody? Who's everybody?
And especially, again, when it comes to gay liaisons. I mean, you mentioned this Scotty Bowers book, which is this guy who worked in a gas station, an ex-Marine or something like that, who wrote a book detailing how he was basically a stud for hire for all of these male stars. And it's been fairly documented what he said was true, and he never mentioned Cesar Romero.
Not once.
However, he does mention Tyrone Power quite a bit. And so the fact that Tyrone Power was gay is kind of fairly well documented.
Well, I think it's fair to say he was bisexual. I mean, he definitely slept with women. There's no getting around that. Whether he liked it or not, I don't know. I wasn't there.
But there is something different about Cesar Romero, and that through all your searches, through all the research that you did, you never really come up with a boyfriend or a lover or a definite even affair. And what it's curious to me is, like, it was generally known in Hollywood, although he might not have talked about it, that he was gay. But what was he doing?
Are you asking if he was a top or a bottom? Is that what you're asking?
Howard.
I was wondering if he was celibate.
I think that, from what I can gather, he always slept with people who had more to lose than he did. So, you know, if you're sleeping with Tyrone Power, no one's gonna, tell the tale. I mean, Tyrone Power's not going to tell about that. And so it is logical to assume that there were other co-stars, that there were other relationships there, but he really left no trail. And when you look at his life as an older man, like post 60, which oh my God, I'm saying that's, oh God, I'm just like, I'm thinking of my own age and going, I'm just combobulating. Anyway, but from the age of 60 or so, I think he was really just dealing with family, dealing with his social life and working. And I don't think he really had an enormous romantic life in his later years, at least to the point that I can figure it out. I put the pieces together of all the things he was doing, and I'm just not sure when he would have had time exactly. I mean, he was doing a lot, and when you think about, I mean, I just finished this book on Roddy McDowall, and it's completely different. I mean, there's at least 4 partners that I was able to find, all of whom were recognized as his partners by, I mean, in the late 50s, 20th Century Fox, executives there would write him letters saying, "Give my love to John." Give my, it was a normal part of life. It was not for Cesar. He was 20 years older than Roddy, and it just was not a part of his life that he wanted to share.
But for example, with Joan Crawford, they were best buds, and that she tended to like gay men. So there was probably a sense that she knew.
Oh, of course she knew. Of course she knew. I mean, they used to date at the Coconut Grove, and she would go away at the end of the evening with like Clark Gable, and he would go away with somebody else. So yeah, it remained private, and it drove me crazy during research, because I really wanted to find, not so much because I wanted to know about sex, I wanted to know about love. And I could see that he loved Tyrone Power and that Tyrone Power loved him. And all I can hope is that there was more than that. That there was something more than that in his life. I just don't know. I could never find it.
Yeah, it reminded me of the whole story with Cary Grant and Randolph Scott. But they actually lived together as a couple. Yeah. And Tyrone Power, I could see how Tyrone Power and Cesar Romero might be just very endearing friends, because they didn't live and act like a couple together.
No.
Going on that tour together is not really the same thing as washing dishes and having dinner together, at the meal. I have to say, in reading the book, I haven't seen any of the movies that he made, and I've seen quite a few. I haven't seen any of the movies except The Devil is a Woman, because it's Joseph von Sternberg, and they taught that in film school. And I've never seen Falcon Crest.
So, you've never seen Lily Winky or The Little Princess?
No. It might have been on TCM.
Little Princess you've seen.
I don't remember Cesar Romero together with Shirley Temple, and they were really the start. Yeah, well, you did. So, yeah, this is my husband. So, I have to say the most shocking thing that I found in the whole thing was that Jose Ferrer was going to be cast as the Joker.
Or Gig Young.
Oh. But all of them, they're so self-serious, and Jose Ferrer is such an actor. And I think the genius of Batman was that adults could enjoy it for the campiness, and the kids loved it for whatever reality they saw in it, or fantasy that they saw in it. But I forgot what I was originally going to ask you then. Oh, and this is about the workmanlike way that it was very revealing to me, not even having seen the films, is how Cesar dealt with the Hollywood establishment. And what was interesting, because you read nowadays how Bette Davis fought with the studio heads because of the imposition of her contract and the unfairness of her contract, how stars constantly wanted more control or destiny over their lives. He seemed to find a good deal of comfort in being a contract player. And in fact, it seems like when the studio system was collapsing, and he was let go by 20th Century Fox, that he kind of freaked out because the security of his jobs were no longer there. Everything about him, even his approach to being closeted, was about being workmanlike. Not, you project a certain face forward because that's what's demanded of the job. And it's not about like being a fine artist as much as being an entertainer, being somebody who does stuff for the audience. What do you think of that?
Well, I definitely would say he was an entertainer. The publicist put out something once, something about him doing Shakespeare, and I was like, are you out of your mind? He never did Shakespeare. What are you talking about? He wanted to entertain people.
He wasn't a trained actor.
He wasn't a trained actor. He was barely a trained dancer, even though he made his living as a dancer. And, he never fought with anybody. So he never fought with, he became good friends with Daryl Zanuck. And
no small feat.
No small feat. He wasn't interested in pulling rank or being a diva. He would ask for what he needed, and definitely like on Batman, he was in his 60s. He needed to rest in between things. It was a lot of work. You see some of the early episodes and it's like, shit, he's doing some of the stunts and some of those fight scenes. It's like, you can see when the double is coming in and when it's him. And it's like, gosh. It was very physically demanding. And so, he would ask for rest and things like that. But he wouldn't ask for perks. He wouldn't ask for special treatment. And I think... I have a theory that it corresponds almost to kind of a sense of noblesse oblige that he grew up with. I think, in his family, being wealthy meant that you had special responsibilities, not just special privileges. And I think that... and this is my own opinion. There's not really a lot of documented proof about this. But my sense is that he just really took that lesson to heart. Like, I have a responsibility to give back. I have a responsibility to make sure that others are treated well on a set that I'm on. And he was always very careful to work with younger stars to make sure that they weren't intimidated by, the situation they were in. He absolutely told them they had to know their lines, they had to know what they were doing, and they had to, be respectful. But, he could also be a voice of reassurance and support.
I was stunned that his family, before they lost their fortune, lived on West 97th Street, by Central Park West, that he actually grew up in the U.S. for the most part.
He was born in the U.S.
Exactly. And his mother's family was in the U.S., right? Yeah. So that's where they met Jose Marti in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right. And Collegiate School, which is also a few blocks around there, which is a Dutch Reformist church, very strict school, very academic, is where he went, and until they lost their fortune and ended up moving to Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Skins.
But I see what you're saying about noblesse oblige, but it's also the sense of loss, the fact that you can have this wealth and then it can be taken away from you so fast. His father lost their fortune in sort of several steps. in the 20s and finally, as a part of the Depression.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable life. And I also was waiting when he said it was a very heavy smoker to find out if he died of that, but he didn't. Yeah. Any other final thoughts about Cesar's? I think of the properness, the sort of European properness of somebody like Liberace, but in his private life he was a complete debauch. And Cesar Romero, and then in his gay life was a complete debauch. And Cesar Romero takes that gentlemanliness sort of as a part of his whole, and that's kind of interesting in a way. And yet, what's curious to me is everybody knew,
Well, I think that it's, we've always been here, and sometimes more hidden than not, but we've always been here. And what I take is that Cesar managed to be private about something that you had to be private about. I mean, he was a leading man. He wasn't Roddy McDowell, who was like a character man. He was a leading man and the romantic lead, So, there was this, you had to find him sexually appealing, to women. That just had to be part of his Hollywood stardom. But he was able to live a life of such authenticity, even amid all of the bullshit, that I think one of the things that I love about Hollywood is how everything is a lie and everything is true at the same time. And, when somebody's going on a talk show and they tell you something, they mean it. It's the truth. It really is the truth in that moment. There's something about that mixture of truth and fantasy that I find really fascinating. And Cesar Romero was somebody who never got lost in the fantasy of it, who never got lost in the dream factory aspect of it, and just showed up and did his job. And that appeals to me.
I think that's a great way to end it. Does anybody have any questions?
So he was obviously famous, but was his talent respected? Was there a particular role that he played that was Oscar considered, or somebody said, this is an acting performance?
Well, he was nominated for a Golden Globe for a movie called If a Man Answers with Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin. And it's a kind of unpleasant movie where, it's a comedy. It's like a Ross Hunter comedy. And so everybody looks fantastic. Caesar's the only one in the movie that didn't have filters. Bobby Darin had heavy filters because Ross didn't like the way he looked. And of course the women, looked like they were shot through Vaseline or whatever. But they didn't have to with Cesar because he still looked good. But I think he wasn't thought of as, some great character actor or anything. But he was highly respected and valued, I think. And you could really count on him. There was some phrase that a friend of mine told me, and I don't remember exactly what it is, but someone had told him that in the 70s and 80s, if you were working on episodic television, you knew you could always call Cesar. Like, if there was a part and somebody, didn't show up, or they were too drunk to show up, to do the work or whatever, you could call Cesar and he would come and do it. And, I think he was just thought of as somebody who was very strong, that you could count on. But I do think that his abilities were somewhat, what's the right word? Underestimated, I think, to a degree.
What about his box office?
His box office was big. I mean, you know, a lot of his, you know, they had a B-movie unit at Fox that made a lot of money for them. And they were generally movies that could be seen as A movies and sometimes were bumped up. And a lot of his B movies where he was the star were bumped up and given A movie treatment in advertising and publicity, so that the box office returns reflected that.
I would say he was a professional, and awards don't always go to that. Awards tend to go to people who bleed, you know, in one way or another, and that was definitely not him. The other thing is his contracts were always renewed until the studio system broke down. But it was because even if his movies weren't huge hits, he was a reliable performer. They could just keep using him and working him. And as Sam points out, and one of the points in the book is that he was loaned out to other studios, and the studio would make a lot of money loaning him out because he was so useful in many different ways. So economically, he was very viable in Hollywood, but it's not the kind of person that you would give awards to.
I would say, actually, I mean, he survived disasters. I mean, you know, The Devil is a Woman was the end of Joseph von Sternberg's career and his partnership with Marlene Dietrich. It was the end of her career until she resurrected herself in Destry Rides Again.
Great movie.
It's an insane movie. Like, nobody is a human being. It's like made by people who've never met a human being. You know, but you look at the two of them in close-up and you could just watch that for days. He could watch that for days. He's very excited over there. You know, but it was more than that. I mean, you know, The Lady in Ermine, which was a huge flop. The Beautiful Blonde from Bashful Bend, which was a huge flop. I mean, he was in a lot of things that were like the last movie that a big director made. Preston Sturges with that one, and Ernst Lubitsch with the other, although, you know, he died. But you know, the Beautiful Blonde from Bashful Bend was so bad that it ended Preston Sturges' career, and nobody blamed Cesar. Nobody blamed him for anything. So. Other questions? Oh, come on. Don't be shy.
Well, is there one role that you saw that you think this was a performance?
I love him with Shirley Temple. He plays an Indian sort of chieftain in Wee Willie Winkie, and they have these moments together that are just astonishingly human and heartfelt. And he's playing a cardboard villain, but he manages to imbue it with an enormous amount of humanity. There's a movie that he made that is really one of my favorites called Deep Waters in 1948, where he plays a Portuguese fisherman who, with Dana Anderson, basically adopts a little boy as two men who are co-parenting. They are not gay. You know, like, it's not like that. But a lot of times... Dana Andrews. Yeah. Did I say something else?
Anderson.
Oh, that's somebody else. Dana Andrews. Okay. I was in Paris 12 hours ago. Cut me a break. I'm tired. But that's my glamorous life. But
Dana Andrews and Cesar Romero was a couple's fantasy.
Well, they lived together. They were lobster fishermen. And Dean Stockwell is like a little juvenile delinquent, and they end up adopting him. And Dana Andrews is the official adopter, but the judge makes it clear that, Cesar is helping. Like, he's, helping being like a co-parent. And online, descriptions of this movie say that Dana Andrews marries his fiancée Jean Peters, which he does not. They break up, and that they adopt the child together. So it's like, well, no, these two guys adopted a child, which is way more interesting. But he also gives a very full-bodied, very interesting performance as well. It's very different from his sort of suave, elegant Hollywood kind of things.
Is that movie easily?
Yeah, it's online. And, you know, anything you can't find is always on OK.ru. RU, it's a Russian website. Where all sorts of material. That's when you're trying to find all of these old movies, sometimes it's very hard to find them anywhere, and you can find them there because they have no concern about copyright, I guess.
So Howard can see Wee Willie Winky. You can see the
No,
movie.
Wee Willie Winky, you can see anything.
No, it's on TCM all the time.
Oh,
It's
well,
on
there you
TCM
go.
all the time. It's a huge movie.
I know.
He should be very
Shirley Temple
embarrassed.
is...
I have seen
anything
it.
with Shirley Temple is easy to find.
Well, you know, it's easy to make fun of those movies. Look, I'm sure that in real life, a little golden curled girl like Shirley Temple did not actually bring peace to the British Empire and the Indians. I'm guessing. I'm guessing that didn't happen in real life. But if you take away that kind of idiocy about it, and just look at the human interactions, there's a lot there.
I don't want to. I have another question.
Go for it.
So obviously, the fact that it was common knowledge that he was gay didn't really affect his career, but there's been no biography up till now, as opposed to people like Clark Gable. Do you think that had any role in the fact that he's not as well thought of? Not well thought of, but not the actual word I'm looking for, but popular?
I think it could. I've thought about that. And now, I mean, he always, when asked, said that he would not write a biography because he didn't want to reveal everyone's secrets. Come to find out, he did shop a biography in the 80s, and they just didn't want to pay enough money for it. So he was like, yeah, I want to do it. But I don't think he would have spilled any real secrets. I don't know. It is confounding to me. And I don't really have a good answer for why there's not been a biography of him. I would say the same thing about Roddy McDowall. These were important enough people to have a biography. I mean, one. And that nobody did. I don't know. I mean, I have wondered if it's because they were gay, but not interestingly gay. Like, not like,
Like Monty Cliff.
like Montgomery Clift, like, not suicidal and, that kind of thing. It's always better when we're suicidal, don't you think? We're so much more interesting when we want to, that's one of those things that drives me crazy too, is that you always read these things about how, I came across this with when Montgomery Clift and Roddy McDowall split up, because they were a couple. Roddy McDowall tried to kill himself. And like, was that before he was doing the U.S. Steel Hour the next day? Or was that, before he was doing while he was on Broadway? Or when exactly did he try to kill himself? And we're always trying to kill ourselves in history. And I'm not sure that we really were, And Patricia Bosworth, who wrote kind of the, what some think of as the definitive Montgomery Clift book, I think really relied a lot on straight people thinking that being gay was like the source of everyone's problems. And as if Montgomery Clift's, emotional problems all had to do with his sexuality. I think he was just, batshit crazy. I don't think he was like, I don't think it was just to do with his being gay. I think he had a lot of problems,
Drugs.
And drugs and alcohol and, mean, you know, he would be at a dinner party and he would just like fall over and they would just leave him on the floor while he just slept it off. And everybody else would go on like, you know, like it was just going on just fine. But I digress.
I have another question. He was alive during Stonewall and during AIDS. Any involvement, comments? Was he friends with Elizabeth Taylor?
No. I mean, Elizabeth, you know, Elizabeth was 20 years younger than he was also. They were very different ages. So, I mean, where Elizabeth and Roddy were like, you know, best friends, it was a very different social circle. And no, I mean, Cesar wasn't even particularly friendly with Rock Hudson. They knew each other, but they weren't in the same circles. And he certainly, like, you know, Cesar wasn't showing up at George Cukor's house on a Sunday. That was not happening, and never would. And I don't even think he would have wanted to. Just in general, I think the idea of a parade of young people showing off their bodies so that people could look at them like they're meat would have been really unpleasant to Cesar. I think he just wouldn't have liked that at all.
But no comment about gay liberation or support of AIDS?
Not one word. No. I'm not even sure that he could really process what all of that was. I think he just looked at it as, you know, I'll liken it to something personal. For me, when I moved to New York, I was 17 years old, and it was right at the beginning of the AIDS era. And I thought AIDS was something that happened to other people who got, like, you know, venereal diseases and things like that. That was like, you know, like, it just seemed like that had nothing to do with me. And of course, that wasn't true. And, you know, it was just that I was disconnected from that community because I was so young, and then later became more connected to it. I think Cesar's disconnection from those communities was kind of total. And I think he would have thought it was very sad that people were dying of AIDS, but I don't think he would have thought it had much to do with him. I don't like saying that, but I just think that that's a very human response when it comes to compartmentalizing difficult truths.
And you don't like saying it because you come to like him?
I love him. I love him. I don't want it to be true. I don't want him to be conservative. It drives me crazy that he was conservative. That he, you know, that he supported Reagan and Nixon. And
he was a whole generation away from Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
You know, it was that whole different.
Well, Elizabeth Taylor and Roddy also grew up as kids in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So they had that bond together.
And I mean, Elizabeth Taylor and Roddy McDowell were shooting Lassie Come Home at MGM. At the same time, they were shooting The White Cliffs of Dover at 20th Century Fox. These small children are like, you know, shuttling back and forth on two different movie sets. And 20th Century Fox issued a release trumpeting the fact that little Roddy McDowell had worked 183 days in a row without a day off, and wasn't that fantastic?
Oh, jeez.
But it's like, okay. I'm not sure it was 183. It might have been 103. I'm bad with numbers, but it was a lot of days. It was a lot of days. And they said that he beat the record that Tyrone Power had held for Blood and Sand, the remake that he did of the Rudolph Valentino picture. But like a 12-year-old child, you're saying, like, isn't it great that he worked so hard for us? I don't know, different times.
All right.
You've been a steady stream of great questions.
You said there were questions online?
No, I said there aren't this time. Yeah, there were no, but yeah.
Okay.
So that was great. It was wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And we'll have books inside if you'd like to buy a book. And you can choose a mug or a tote bag with the image that is thanks to Sam bringing those to the store.
Oh, well, wait. I have.
We have something else as well.
There's more. So, we have 2 T-shirts, and we can raffle them off. So everybody, here.
Okay. Can you show me the T-shirt, and then I think I'm going to let the audience go.
Oh, it's like optical store.
Oh.
It looks like it's for you. Yes, I have my own bands made up with my image on them.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to thank you for this event. Thank you for coming, and then we'll have the raffle, and we'll have books and book signing. Thank you.
And it's